I wanted to start off today, Travis, by just sharing with the audience some of the statistics because, I teach that financial workshop, and I'm just going to read them off to you here. You see them up on the board. So, students between the ages of 15 and 21 report that they feel unprepared to face the complex world in the 21st century. So, share with me back in, when you were in that age bracket there, what was your mindset with money? What did you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from an early age, I was interested in business, and I was already thinking about my future. At the beginning of high school, going 15 to 21, I think in that age gap, there's a lot of variables. So obviously, at first, you've got your driving is coming up, right? You just want to be social and fun and have the high school aspect. And then the first thing that people will obviously start really considering the future is college. And I think when it comes to college, a lot of people don't necessarily know what they want to do. They try and figure it out. For me personally, I kind of did. Being here in Las Vegas, I was really excited. I enjoyed the business aspect. I actually wanted to do convention sales. And so I had looked into a couple of sales and marketing avenues, ended up going to UNLV here, and it took me into my first job, which I actually worked at Best Buy. Got a little bit of sales there. It's a little bit more fun. It's not high pressure. It's not commission sales or anything, but at least it got me introduced into that business world. Obviously, going to college, trying to figure things out, find your path, but catered a little bit more towards what you want to do. Once I finished up school and I was going and working, I had transitioned into my first job on the Las Vegas Strip. I worked at the Rio with Caesars Entertainment. I worked there for 6 years. And then that led me into my current role, which I'm now with MGM Resorts, and I've been with them for 11. But definitely, I started considering the business and money side of it, I would say, right at that tail end of high school, right when I first got my first job, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with college and where that was going to take me. I was in a unique position where I bought my first house very young. And so I had considered my finances. I was living with a couple of friends. We had some apartments that we had shared. Typical stuff. It ruins a couple of relationships. People talk about it. But I started to feel the financial pressure for the first time when you're splitting rent or splitting bills, and all of a sudden a friend moves out on you, and you really have to say, okay, where am I at? What can I do? What can I support on my own? And really having to think about those things. And so it kind of just jump started and catapulted me a little bit forward, I think, quicker than most. And then I started just realizing that I was wasting money on rent and doing things. And you and I had some conversations with some other people, and decided to end up buying my first house actually at 20, just so I could not waste money on rent, but hopefully have that money work for me that I could then take that equity in the future and roll it.
Right. So, think about in the past here. So, do you think it was the educators at school that was teaching you about money? Do you think it was family? Was it both? Where do you think you got a lot of that financial wherewithal to know that you wanted to do the right things with money and not, I like to say, squander money, right? Because I teach, especially like I've taught my kids and I teach other people in the class, we really have to learn the difference between wants and needs, right? And wants always outweigh the needs. You know what I mean? Everybody wants everything, but what do you really need, right? And this is where the money just starts going away. You wonder, why am I broke? Why I make money? Why am I broke? Well, you're spending more money on wants than you are the needs, right?
Yeah.
But it says here also, so the majority of educators were not given a financial education course and feel unprepared to teach the subject. Many lack the confidence to teach it to the students, which tells us in school, right, as you're going through high school, or maybe even share with everybody in college. I mean, back to school, what did you learn in school about financial literacy?
Yeah, that was one of the main things that we had discussed, especially getting into college and especially after college. Looking back at it, some of the things that you learn in school, and although the early education stuff, I think you're just trying to figure out your way. They're teaching a lot of history, right? English, and dotting your I's, crossing your T's, doing things the right way. But as far as preparing you for the real world, there's no courses that teach you how to balance a checkbook, right? It teaches you math and numbers, and you would think that you can ideally figure that out, but it's not an inherent course or anybody that says, hey, listen, this is going to be a major part of your life after school. Is whatever path that it takes you on, whatever you find that you want to do, you're still going to need to figure out your finances, your money, balancing a checkbook, paying taxes, understanding, the wants and needs, like you said, of saying, here's how to really set a budget, you know. And as much as in high school, especially, they skip over a lot of that. But even in college, once I found my major and I went into hospitality management, they had a few courses that were geared towards that. I remember one of the courses when we were running through statistics and probability is that for me, because I was going into the gaming side, we played craps. And we actually ran through math and statistics because it was catered a little bit more towards what I was going to use.
Right.
But when you think about the early education, if somebody could have said, okay, here's something you're going to need to know and plan in the back of your mind, pay yourself first. Or when you start going and actually making money, having a savings account, the difference of savings and checking, not just all of one lump sum of money. This is what you have, and this is what comes in. This is where it goes out to paying bills, right? Everybody wants to have fun and spend their money and go out and party at that young age, but they don't necessarily think of, okay, I need to have the what if. And a lot of people don't start planning for that until it's kind of too late, or they're already behind the eight ball a little bit.
I think that really brings us into this third one here that makes a lot of sense what you just described. So it goes on to say the majority of college students say they pick up most of their personal financial education from their parents, but less than half of students said their parents make a consistent, conscientious effort to teach them. About 70% of college students say their parents are their main source of information. So you just described, right, how during that age bracket, 15, 20 to 21, that we really are leaning on our parents, but not, I don't think people are verbal about it. Like, hey, mom, hey, dad, teach me this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I always say parents can't teach what parents don't know, right? And so if we're expecting our parents to teach us, but in fact, they're not doing it, they can't. And again, I believe I just had experiences for years now of sitting one-on-one with people and talking their finances and whatnot. And I find that there's so many, and across the whole country, remember I used to travel doing this, and I found that so many people out there, good, hardworking people, nice people, good people, but without financial literacy and in their ages of 40s, 50s, 60s, couldn't come up with a $20,000 program that we were trying to put out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just don't have it. I'm like, well, both of you guys are working. You make, on paper here, you're showing me you're making, mid six, six figures above.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are doing good. So what I found out was, so these people, what most people do, because they don't learn, whether it be between 15 and 21 or 30 to 50, it really doesn't matter. There's no age to learn this. You should learn it at some point in time, right? That they weren't, implementing separating them indigo. You mentioned having a checking and a savings, because if most people only have a checking, they start commingling money, and you never really know where you sit now. Like, am I spending the bill money on the want, right, instead of I need to pay the power bill?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Or I want to go for the weekend wherever. And so it's real important, which you learned early. Like, I don't want to commingle my money.
Yeah, and honestly, I think going back to the parents, I mean, a lot of people, if your parents aren't necessarily as, fluent with it, and they don't necessarily know, a lot of kids at that age, they just want to hang out with their friends, right? And they don't necessarily approach their parents and, like you said, ask. But at the same time, even if their parents are giving the information, they're probably not retaining it. A lot of times they just want to do what their friends are doing. And, oh, you can afford that? Oh, I can afford that? Okay, well, let's just go and do it. And they're not necessarily thinking long term. I think that that's just a part of an inherent human just of adolescent growing up. I mean, you're going to make those mistakes, but I think if you can have at least the conversation and have it in the back of the mind somewhere, then that starts to kind of flip that switch, right? And just have that trigger that just says, do I really need to do this? I can do it, but do I need to? I remember I was thinking about this, or, oh, somebody mentioned this. For me, yeah, a lot of those conversations didn't necessarily come with my parents, but they came with a couple of friends. And as I wanted to grow in business, I tried to find some mentors, and I tried to find some other people that I could talk to. Obviously, I had many conversations with you, my other aunt growing up. My parents, they did what they could to instill a lot of other values, but unfortunately, financial and money wasn't necessarily at the forefront.
So what do you think? I mean, we got listeners out there probably in your same, age bracket, mid-30s or what have you, and you've got a couple of young kids at home. What kind of advice would you give them if they're maybe getting ready to get married, getting ready to have kids? What can you do to advise to give them, because you guys are close in range, that would help them get to where they want to be? Or, well, I mean, again, I feel that you're sitting pretty for your age. You're right on target. I mean, I'm not worried about you having probably a really awesome retirement.
Yeah, I mean, I first and foremost, the best advice that I can give is you're never ready. I think a lot of people want to say, well, let's hit this point, even if you are goal oriented, or even if you are financially savvy, and even if you want to say, look, I just want to get to this point and then we'll be ready. You're never going to be ready. So whatever it may be, whenever it happens, you're going to figure it out. There's a lot of people in a lot worse situations than you that have kids that end up just figuring it out, whether it's a support system from friends, family, coworkers, or all of a sudden that inherent parent just values and those traits that they just pop up and you just kind of figure it out. So the first and foremost I would say is don't wait too much. If you are, getting married, enjoy that part of your life, enjoy getting married, do that. If you are talking about having kids, just do it, dive into it. It's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in your life. I think to have that is going to be important because that's what will help you set a goal, right? So at first, when you're making money, I would say, okay, we're making it and we're maybe setting some money aside for the what ifs or some of those wants, maybe not necessarily need, and for things that may or may not come up. Oh, let's look at maybe traveling. Oh, let's take a little vacation. Let's save up and buy that big TV or renovate the house or whatever you guys decide that you want to do. But I think that when you start having a family, when you get married and you have kids, that all of a sudden starts to set that path for you. And now you all of a sudden are taking the backseat a little bit. And you know that you're not just saving for things that you want or need, but what your children are going to want and need, or setting up things for you and your wife in the future of what you're going to want and need, maybe after kids. And so that's what really will help set that roadmap a little bit more. I think that everybody's situation is a little bit different as far as what they can do to set aside or what they want to work towards or whatever whatever their goal is in life. But I think that whatever it is, that will start to pave that road a little bit for you. I think that's where you'll really start to see, and it'll take you in a direction and say, okay, this is what I want to do. For me, it was always working. I always wanted to work. Work was first. I just wanted to dive into it. And it wasn't until I met my wife and started having kids that I was like, okay, this is what I've worked towards. Now I need to shift that a little bit more. Family is now first and work is not first. It's allowed me a lot of freedoms to provide for my family and do things. Obviously, I still need it, but I'm now working towards them, not to further my career, but to set up our family for the future. And
Well,
that changes the mentality a little bit.